Honor, the state's recommendation in this case for count one, involuntary manslaughter based on simple battery, state's recommendation is 10 years to serve 5 years and the balance on probation. Count two would vacate by operation of law. And count three, aggravated battery, the state's recommendation is 10 years to serve, 10 years to serve on probation, concurrent to count one. With the special conditions, and I apologize, of 100 hours of community service, no contact with the family of the victim, Miss Jacqueline, and that you enter into and complete anger management.
Yep. Okay. Go.
Will you hand me my screen box?
Now go. Franklin, 24 SC 002075. Mr. Butterfield.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court. Always a pleasure to see you, Judge.
Good to see you. Always dressed sharp. I like that tie.
Well, thank you kindly, Your Honor.
Your true, correct, and legal name.
Gloria Jean Franklin.
And do you understand that you're charged with the following offenses? You're charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter and 1 count of aggravated battery. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges? And if you plead not guilty, you may remain silent and you may receive a jury trial.
Guilty.
Nope.
No, I'm sorry.
You just said yeah.
Yes, okay.
And have you had an opportunity to, have you had enough time to speak with your lawyer, Mr. Butterfield, about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charges in this indictment, including any potential defenses?
Yes, I have.
Do you need more time to discuss this case with your attorney?
No,
And are you satisfied with his services?
extremely.
Counsel, do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
We so waive.
And counsel, do you waive any and all defects in the indictment, including any with respect to your client's name?
We waive any defects in the indictment.
Okay. And Ms. Franklin, have you been arrested on the charges in this indictment?
Yes,
The state is unaware of any outstanding warrants that are related to these charges. Do you or your attorney know of any outstanding warrants that are related to these charges?
no,
And has your attorney advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge you are pleading to?
yes, he has.
For involuntary manslaughter, the minimum is 1 year, maximum is 10 years. And for aggravated battery, minimum is 1 year, maximum is 20 years. Do you understand?
I do.
And do you understand that this is a guilty plea and it's a non-negotiated plea, and the state may still recommend a sentence to the court?
Yes,
And are you aware of the state's recommendation? And Your Honor, the state's recommendation in this case for count one, involuntary manslaughter based on simple battery, state's recommendation is 10 years to serve 5 years and the balance on probation. Count two would vacate by operation of law. And count three, aggravated battery, the state's recommendation is 10 years to serve, 10 years to serve on probation, concurrent to count one.
Okay.
With the special conditions, and I apologize, of 100 hours of community service, no contact with the family of the victim, Miss Jacqueline, JACQUELINE, last name Mixon, MIXON, and that you enter into and complete anger management. And do you understand that that's the state's recommendation, Ms. Franklin?
yes,
Do you understand that the court can impose any sentence authorized by law, including a higher sentence than that recommended by the state, up to the maximum sentence on each charge in this indictment?
yes,
Do you understand that do you understand that this plea is a guilty plea, which is permanently recorded on your criminal history?
permanently? No. Yes,
And do you understand that this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as in other jurisdictions, including in the federal courts?
yes,
And do you understand that if you're currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on your entering a guilty plea today?
I do.
Do you understand that if you're placed on probation of any kind, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probation without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence?
Yes,
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation?
yes,
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the court, your attorney, nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole, the Department of Corrections, or Board of Pardons and Paroles, and no one can guarantee parole, no matter what anyone has told you?
I understand.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment.
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison?
I understand.
And are you asking me to treat it as a first offender under the provisions of the First Offender Act?
Yes.
Have you ever pled guilty or nolo contendere to, or ever been convicted of a felony in the state of Georgia or any other jurisdiction?
No.
Have you ever been sentenced for any crime, felony, or misdemeanor under the First Offender Act?
No.
Has your lawyer explained the First Offender Act to you?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you violate the terms of your first offender sentence or commit a new offense while on first offender probation, your first offender status could be revoked, you could be adjudicated guilty, and you could be resentenced to up to the maximum sentence for each charge in this indictment?
I do.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
I do.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you would have the right to trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify or to remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
I do.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights: the right to trial by jury, the right to remain silent and not to incriminate yourself, the right to confront witnesses against you, the right to assistance of counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at a trial of your case, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence, the right to subpoena witnesses and compel the production of evidence, the right to have the charges against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial?
I do.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea?
No.
And is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Say guilty under Alfred.
I take the
Say guilty under Alfred.
guilty under Alfred.
And are you pleading guilty because you've decided that it is in your best interest to do so?
Yes.
And are you aware that even if you do not admit guilt, this is a plea of guilty and places you in the same position as if you were convicted by a jury at a trial?
Yes.
And how do you plead to the charges of involuntary manslaughter and aggravated battery in indictment number 24 SC 002075?
Guilty under Alfred.
And is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you understand that you may only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Do you understand that you only have 4 years from today for a felony charge and 12 months from today for a misdemeanor charge to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness of this guilty plea?
I do.
Your Honor, had this case proceeded to trial, the state would expect its evidence to show that on March 1st, 2022, at approximately 9:50, Miss Brianna Gozier, Gosier, ran over the victim in this case, Miss Jacqueline Mixon, who was 78 years old at the time of her passing, after the defendant, Miss Gloria Franklin, pushed her into the roadway on the 6th floor of the Piedmont Hospital parking garage located at 35 Collier Road in Atlanta, inside of Fulton County. Miss Mixon died from her injuries soon thereafter. The security personnel at the hospital provided the lead detective on the case with footage footage filmed by surveillance cameras. It appeared that This was a road rage incident. The victim, Miss Mixon, entered the parking deck behind the defendant, and as they drove through the deck, the victim tailgated and honked her horn at the defendant, appearing to indicate that the defendant needed to drive faster. Once the defendant reached the sixth floor, she parked in a parking space close to the elevator and she got out of her vehicle. The victim walked up to her and they had a verbal altercation. According to the defendant, the victim called her a quote unquote black bitch and turned away from the defendant to walk toward the elevator. The defendant then went into a rage and charged at the victim, forcefully pushing her from behind, which caused her to fall headfirst forward onto the floor, striking her forehead on the concrete parking deck, which resulted in a laceration in the center of her forehead. The victim laid motionless in the middle of the traffic lane, and the defendant then turned around, took a few steps back to her vehicle, retrieved items from her vehicle, and within about 30 to 40 seconds, the victim, who was struggling to move by rolling to her right side and then to her left side, was struck by a vehicle driven by another individual that was coming up a ramp and turned right and ran over the victim. 911 was called immediately, and the victim stopped breathing but was successfully stabilized. The victim later died from her injuries. The defendant left the scene before the police arrived, going into the hospital, where she was later located and detained. Your Honor, the defendant's actions were the legal and proximate cause, as well as the cause and fact of Miss Mixon's death. Miss Mixon did die from complications of blunt force trauma from the torso and extremities. Miss Mixon also suffered blunt force injuries to her head. Your Honor, the state's recommendation, as previously stated, is 10 years to serve 5 years in the balance probated with those special conditions that were previously mentioned. Your Honor, Ms. Mixon's family is present in court, and she was loved and supported by her family. I do have a couple of victim impact statements that I would like to have read. The first one, Your Honor, being from a Pastor James Pitts of Chapel Hill Baptist Church. And Pastor Pitts wrote to the court, "Dear Honorable Judge, I am writing on behalf of Miss Jacqueline Mixon, who was assaulted on March 1st, 2022. Jackie was a woman of God, a faithful church member, and a friend. It was a terrible shock to learn of this assault and later to be with her when she was taken off life support. There is no way to describe what a great person Jackie was. She is sorely missed. Myself and my congregation pray that justice will be served in this matter. Sincerely, Pastor James Pitts." And Your Honor, at the appropriate time, I would like for there will be 4 statements read from 4 different individuals.
Okay,
And is this the appropriate time, Your Honor?
absolutely.
Thank you, Your Honor. And the first individual would be Miss Mixon's first cousin, Miss Marcia King.
Jackie was the flower girl at my parents' marriage. She babysat me and my sisters when she was a teenager. She was a deputy sheriff for Douglas County for more than 15 years. She was very active in the church. She loved to travel and saw many places while working as a travel driver with her late husband, Maury. She loved and supported her family. Whenever we had a family event, everyone gravitated toward her and to see what she had baked and decorated. She loved to decorate cakes, etc. She was devoted to her late parents and tried to make sure they lived their lives were easier. She loved and was devoted to her son, who passed away from leukemia 1 year later after Jackie was killed. In my heart, I will always believe, even though he fought valiantly, that her death contributed to his demise. While her son was undergoing cancer treatment, she drove him to the hospital every day. Because of the pandemic, she was not allowed in the hospital, so she sat in her car in the parking lot reading books and talking to me on the phone. I had major life-altering surgery with major complications. She helped me many a days, talking to me, listening and encouraging me. The last time I saw Jackie was February 10th, 2022. That was my late sister's viewing. I was devastated, beside myself with grief. She held me like a mother holds a child, trying to soothe my grief. Jackie was tragically an unnecessary killed in March of 2022. I never saw her alive again. I never was able to have any more conversations with her. I was never able to say it was okay to meet and be with her beloved husband and parents in heaven. If they had been alive, they would have been so upset to have at how Jackie was killed. I am thankful that they were there to meet her when she arrived in the pearly gate. And I know she was there to meet her son when he arrived. The only consolation is that they are now all together. But why? Why did the defendant put Jackie under a car? I can see no justification under any circumstances for that at all. He took Jackie away from the family, her son and me, when she was needed by us all. And when the defendant did not even stay in that parking lot, but turned around and left to go to her family, leaving Jackie pinned under the car, gravely injured and dying. I ask you, what kind of a decent human being would do that? Please, Judge Manning, the defendant has been allowed to celebrate holidays with her family, work, and carry on her life. We, Jackie's family, have not had those opportunities. Please, Judge, remember the heinous act the defendant committed and sentence her harshly with incarceration. Thank you for your time, Your Honor. As always, Marcia King.
Thank you, Ms. King.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for your loss. Yes, ma'am.
And the next individual would be, or individuals are Dawn Pennington and Tracy Bagley.
I'm Dawn. Jackie was my stepmother. Thought of how Jackie was taken away from us.
It's okay. You need to say it. No, you're okay.
Beautiful.
Let me know if you need to say
Her
it.
generosity and unwavering support for us is immeasurable, and she will always be remembered as a kind and happy person. We keep asking ourselves why it had to be her. Jackie didn't deserve this. She was such a kind, gentle soul, and she was taken from us in the most brutal way. We are angry that we'll never get to hear her voice again, angry that she won't get to be a part of our lives, angry that she can't create beautiful birthday cakes for us anymore or share advice with us. We will always love her, and we will never forget the role she played in our lives. But the pain of losing her like that is something we'll carry forever. We hope this statement serves as a testament to the profound loss we have suffered. Our stepmother was a bright light in our lives, and her absence will continue to cast a long shadow on our hearts. While no sentence can ever truly bring Jackie back, I urge the court to consider the immense pain and suffering this murder has caused everyone who knew and loved Jackie. We believe that a just punishment will not only acknowledge the severity of this crime, but also provide some semblance of closure for our family as we are trying to live our lives without her. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the loss of your bonus mom, I like to call them. Thank you both.
The next is Miss Susan Kimsey.
Your Honor, Jackie Mixon not here to tell her side of the story of what happened on March 1st. Basically, she was killed by the defendant for nothing. Your action took a mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, a sister, a friend away from us, which has haunted our lives since that day. The defendant action took Charles Kimsley's mother, her only child, from him as he was battling leukemia, AML, and really needed his mother. Charles Kimsley was her only son, and there was nothing she wouldn't do for him She was always there for him, and no one could have better mother than she was for him. The pain, hurt, and anger, the loss of losing his dad 2 weeks earlier to COVID, the defendant's angry state caused him to lose his mother life. To lose his mother life, within 2 weeks apart, being the only child, the pain across his face was so much emotion, no one could understand the pain Charles felt. No one could bring his parents back, and we understand everyone dies, but under the circumstance that the defendants caused Jackie death she showed no remorse, no emotion for her action. The defendant has some anger issues that shows that is not her first go around. This is the first time she got caught. The defendant didn't care for human life. If she had, she would have stayed and tried to help. Instead, chose to leave the location, never even looking for help at what she had done. No one should have to live with that kind of stress hanging over them. Jackie Mixon had retired from Coca-Cola, Douglas County Sheriff Department, which for over 10 years she was patrolling the streets, putting her life on the line every day. She worked, and for something like this to happen was unthinkable. If the defendant anger wasn't out of control, Jackie would still be alive, would still be here. The life Jackie had was an adventure, and she loved to travel and enjoy life. Jackie and her son, my husband, zip-lined across the Grand Canyon. Jackie was also busy and doing things. Her energy level was off the charts for her age. Her sane age is just a number because she still worked at John Thornton Chevrolet, driving cars and trucks across the states. Since her son, my husband, got sick, she slowed down to help take care of him. No one can love you like a mother, she always said. Survived cancer several times, and for her to die that way is just unspeakable. She was loved by so many. If the action of the defendant anger hadn't got to her, Jackie would still be here. But I hope justice will help close this matter so we can move on. But the sadness and pain will never go away. It haunts me how people are so cold to human life. Knowing this day was coming has been haunting us for 2.5 years, but I am glad we will finally get some closure today. But not just for my husband and me, but for our whole family and friends who love her daily. The horror, sick act the defendant did on March 1st, Jackie will finally get her justice, even if she has no remorse for life. No one should have to indulge the circumstances Jackie went through. Life support kept her alive for 11 days, and Charles Kingsley, Jackie's son, was there even though he could barely get around himself. He tried over and over for justice for his mother, but the hurt and painful circumstances of him losing his mother was more than his body could handle, and he passed away a year later with a broken heart for his mother. Thank you, Susan Kimsey.
Thank you, Ms. Kimsey. I'm sorry for your loss.
In Your Honor, the last statement is from Ms. Mixon's son, Mr. Charlie King, brother. I apologize.
Good morning, Mr. King.
I'd like to thank members of the family and community that presented statements this morning.
Yes, sir.
Move on. I'm Charlie King, the brother of Jackie Mixon. There were 13 years between us, which meant she contributed a lot to my upbringing, all the way from changing my diapers to teach me how to drive. She was particularly influential in my teen years, keeping me out of trouble. I'm writing this statement to share the profound and lasting impact Jackie's violent, senseless death has had on my family and her community. My sister was taken from us in the most unimaginable way, pushed under a moving car, a senseless and cowardly act. The images of that moment and the knowledge that my sister was murdered so violently haunt us to this day. Her life was violently and intentionally taken from her without stopping or calling for help. The culprit just walked away to continue her day. Especially hard hit by this tragedy was my nephew, Charles Kimsey. Charles's father died from COVID, and 2 weeks after the funeral, his mother is pushed under a car and dies from her injuries. Both parents gone in 2 weeks. Jackie was with Charles 24/7 for over 2 years through his battle with leukemia. Less than a year after his mother's death, we buried Charles also. The weight of Jackie's death seemed to stunt Charles's recovery. Financial impact is also significant. Grady Hospital put a lien on her house for expenses, thinking there was more money to collect from any lawsuit monies family might receive from Medicare. After 2.5 years, Grady finally dropped that lien last week. There are still legal and probate fees to be associated with Jackie's death. Jackie was full of life and kind, always ready to lend a hand to anyone in need. She was a light that has now been snuffed out. It's our reality, and it's one that we'll never recover from. I hope that by reading these statements, the court understands the depth of pain and suffering many have endured because of this innocent act. My sister's life was stolen and will never be the same. No sentence can bring her back, but I ask for justice for her so that no one else has to endure the pain and loss that we have. Thank you for hearing our statements.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. King, let me ask you a little bit about your sister. So when did she work at the sheriff's office in Douglas County? Which sheriff did she work under? Earl Lee?
Earl Lee,
Oh, okay.
I don't live in Douglas County, so I'm not really.
Well, there hadn't been too many in the last, 30 years. Earl Lee was there forever.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
How much I do recall, because we were good friends with my brother-in-law at the time. He was bailiff in the court system there. So
Now you don't live in, where do you live?
I live in Kennesaw.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, good. So what's your most favorite memory about your sister?
Back when I was a teenager, she, not to get into details, but she pulled me out of a lot of trouble.
So she covered for you.
Well, cover, advice, and spoke to the court. But but no, she I used her for guidance because of the differential in our ages. She'd already been through that. We went to the same high schools and stuff. She didn't give me tips on teachers I was going to be facing in high school. But she was always there. She would see stuff coming and tell me, and I could make better judgments in my life. I guess that's probably the best way I could put it.
That's definitely a good sister. Definitely a good sister. Hopefully, if you have children, they learned and they're good to their siblings.
We're working on
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry for your loss.
it.
Your Honor, the state is showing no felony history for Ms. Franklin. And the state would object to the Alford plea, but we do understand that it's at the court's discretion.
All right. Mr.
Nothing
Butterfield.
further.
Okay.
Judge, I want to speak with you a little bit about Miss Franklin, and then I'm going to speak with you a little bit about the case. And we have multiple people on Zoom calls, and we have folks inside the courtroom here also supporting Miss Franklin. But Judge, as she stands here now, she's 72 years old. And back on March the 1st of 2022, and I met her shortly after that, I've been a part of this case from day one, Miss Franklin was 69 years old. She had been retired. She's now been retired for about 9 years, and she retired from the CDC. She was a program analyst at the CDC, where she recorded birth defects and did calculations. She worked there for about 13 years. She was born and raised in St. Louis, East St. Louis, Illinois, rather. And in 1980 to 1982, she worked at the Record Center doing their vital records in St. Louis. So she's always worked in government. She moved to Atlanta in 1983, and she worked for the Department of Defense, working at Lockheed Martin from 1982 to 1997, where she was an accounting technician there. And then after that, she worked for Equifax from 97 to 02. And then she worked for the CDC. She has one daughter, Monica Franklin, who is in court with her today. She has a grandson who is now, was 17 back then, but I believe is 20 at this particular point. And that's just a little bit about who Miss Franklin is by way of a little bit of her background. I have some other folks on the Zoom call who are going to speak a little bit more about her, but I'll tell you, Judge, in this particular case, Miss Franklin is taking a plea in this case. She does believe that considering all the facts and circumstances, it is in her best interest to resolve this matter. She's always been remorseful, and I'll talk about what she told the police on day one, but I've struggled with this case, Judge, for about 3 years now. And what I've struggled with in looking at this case is how it is that the driver, Miss Garcia, could run over Miss Mixon in the parking deck of Piedmont Hospital back on March the 1st. I've been out to that parking deck prior to this incident, after this incident. It was not crowded at the time of this incident. It was well lit. It was wide open, and there was no speed limit there or nothing preventing the speed. And it boils down, I believe, that Miss Garcia simply was not paying attention. She had a person in the car with her. We didn't get the records to determine if she was on the phone, but in this particular case, the eyewitness in this case, Mr. Michael Thomas, he had gotten off the elevator. He saw Miss Mixon there, was going to help Miss Mixon. And he said, I thought the driver saw her. But he says next thing he knew, she hit the woman, this is what his statement says. And he's like, hey, stop. And she's like, what's going on? And the young driver gets out oblivious that she has run over a whole human being who had been there for quite some time. This is not a case when this case was in the media when it first occurred. It alleged that Miss Franklin pushed Miss Mixon into oncoming traffic as if they were on the highway or something. But we'll talk a little bit about that. But they should never push Miss Mixon into any oncoming traffic at all. In this case, Miss Garcia could have been charged with vehicular homicide, misdemeanor version of it. But in this case, Judge, as I struggled, there was an intervening cause of the death of Miss Mixon being this negligent driver. But one thing that's always remained clear is that Miss Franklin never intended to cause any injury, harm, definitely not death to Miss Mixon. When she talked to the police that day, they said that Miss Franklin states she didn't mean to cause any harm to Miss Mixon or her death if she dies from her injuries that she suffered. And Miss Franklin was very remorseful when learning of Mixon's condition, and she never meant for any of this to happen. She was upset when she was called a black bitch. So what really happened out there on that day when you consider what Miss Franklin told the police? She had gone to the hospital that day, Judge, on March the 1st. She too had an only child, has an only child, Miss Monica Franklin, who was at the hospital for some serious surgery. And Miss Franklin had been to the hospital, but at this time there was construction at the hospital. And she was there very early to get there to the surgery. And when she got there, because of the construction, she didn't know which date to go in. So she was confused and she was trying to get to her daughter. And as she pulled into the deck, someone behind her was blowing the horn. Miss Franklin says she noticed the sound, but she didn't turn around because she was nervous and she just wanted to get out of the way and park. And after that, she continued to drive, and the person was continuing to blow the horn, and she was looking for a space, and she went all the way up. But Miss Franklin said she never turned around. She was just doesn't know who was blowing, but she was just looking for parking. At some point, when she got to the 6th floor, she got out. She was gathering her bags, and that is when she saw a person coming down. And the video shows all of this. It shows Miss Mixon coming down, and it shows Miss Franklin there. And Miss Franklin said she was trying to explain, ma'am, are you the person who was blowing at me? I want to explain, like, my daughter's having surgery. I was not trying to, cause you any harm or any inconvenience. And as she was talking to Miss Mixon, Mr. Franklin said, and they say there was a dispute had. You can see them talking. Miss Mixon stated she didn't want to hear that. And then she said, and Miss Franklin still said, well, I was just, my daughter's having surgery. I just wanted to tell you, I didn't mean to, impede the traffic. And Miss Mixon said, I don't want to hear that. And she walked off and said, black bitch. And it shows Miss Franklin look, and then in Miss Franklin's mind, as she sits here today, she believed that she was going to tap Miss Mixon on the shoulder and say, man, did you call me a bitch? But we know now she did push Miss Mixon down. Miss Mixon, she didn't fall to the ground. She stumbled forward and she fell. She was not unconscious at the time. You can see the video, and Miss Franklin is there. Miss Mixon is moving around. And what she told the police that day is, oh my God, I don't want to do anything more to touch this woman. She's already on the ground. And at that point, and she told him, she said she didn't know if she would be sued or anything. But at that time, Miss Mixon was not unconscious. She thought she was going to be fine. And there were people around. We know that Mr. Thomas got off the elevator. Miss Franklin goes back to her car. She walks to her car, gathers her things. At some point later, that is when the young driver comes around and for some inexplicable reason does not see Miss Mixon. And there's quite some distance when from the time her car enters the video to the time she runs over Miss Mixon. That is what we have in this particular case, Your Honor. This was an unfortunate, tragic incident, but it was an accident by every sense of the word. Some would say, well, had she never pushed it, we wouldn't be here. But there was the intervening cause in this case. But considering all the facts and circumstances, Miss Franklin wants to get this matter resolved also. In this particular case, Judge, we have some folks that we want to speak with the court about, and then I will talk to the court about what it is that we'll be seeking. If you give me 1 second, Judge.
Sure. Ms. Sanders.
Judge, at this time, we have some character witnesses. They will be brief, and they're going to talk a little bit about Ms. Franklin. If I may call them at the court's pleasure, and then I will.
Absolutely.
Judge, on the screen, there is Melissa Murray on for Gloria Franklin. If you could turn on your camera and then turn on your microphone, please. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony which you're about to give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. State your name and tell us how old you are.
Melissa Murray, and I'm 64 years old.
And Ms. Murray, are you married, single, divorced, or widowed?
Married.
If you have children, tell us how many and how old they are.
I have no children.
And what do you do for a living?
I am an insurance agency owner and have been for over 40 years.
Tell us how you know Miss Gloria Franklin and how long you've known her.
Well, I originally met her as a client nearly 40 years ago. And just through the years, she became a close friend just from her caring nature and who she is. She's just somebody that I was drawn to naturally. And she was always helpful and kind. So she's the kind of person that I would like to be a friend with.
And over the years in spending time with her, have you come to learn her reputation for honesty in the community?
Yes, Gloria, I've always known her to be a woman of honor and integrity. And I personally have never really even known her to tell a lie. I mean, she may have told a white lie in her life, but I've never even experienced her to tell a lie.
And have you come to learn her reputation for peacefulness and nonviolence? I mean, is she the kind of person who has a violent nature? Or tell us about that.
No, I've honestly never known Gloria to be violent or exhibit anger of any kind. I mean, I'm honestly baffled that she's even mixed up in something like this, because I can't imagine what the conversation was or what would have provoked her to even be angry enough to touch her. I mean, the language was bad, but that's just not the Gloria I know. She's always wanting peace and helpfulness, and she's always been an inspiration to me, because she is a strong woman of God who is serious about her faith and her relationship with the Lord. And she has her morning quiet time and Bible study every day, and she's always willing to offer you an encouraging word of scripture. And I thought the other day about the fact that she has that even on her voicemail. If you get her voicemail, she's offering an encouraging word of scripture on her voicemail. So, I mean, this is a woman that inspires me, and I have just been baffled since this whole thing happened. I just couldn't imagine Gloria being involved in anything like this.
And lastly, can you give us one of the experiences that come to mind that characterize who Miss Franklin is that you can share with us?
Well, the thing that comes to mind mostly is just her helpful nature and her kindness. And I have an insurance agency, as I mentioned earlier. I had a new office manager at the time, and she got to know Gloria through just handling her account. And she mentioned to Gloria one day that she was having to pack her mother up and move her into an assisted living home. And Gloria offered to come help her pack and move her mother. And she didn't have to do that. I mean, but that meant the world to Deborah that she offered to do that. And she actually did it. And Deborah was just, amazed that a client to her, she was a friend of mine. But at the time that this happened with Deborah, she was just a client and she offered to come help her. And then years later, when my husband and I bought our new home and moved, she did the same thing for me. She found out we were moving and she offered to come help us pack up and move. And that was a blessing as well. So, like I said, that's the kind of person she is. I don't know what to say. It's just, I'm still baffled that anything could have provoked this.
Well, thank you very much for being here today. The prosecutor, Ms. Robinson, may have a question, may not have a question, and maybe the court, but thank you for answering my question.
Sure, thank you.
Come over.
No questions.
Right,
Okay.
thank you. And you may be excused if you need to, or you're happy to
Okay.
continue.
Can I
to
say
be-
one more thing?
Sure.
I'd like to say that just what I've had in my mind this whole time for the last 2.5 years is that Gloria I know would never ever intentionally hurt anyone. She's a helper. She's a blessing. She's not someone who wants to harm anyone.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Yes, the next witness here I'm going to call, Your Honor, is, I believe, Miss Linda Harris is on the, Miss Harris on the call. Yes, and then please turn on your camera and turn on your microphone, Miss Harris. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony which you're about to give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And Ms. Harris, state your name and tell us if you're married or single.
My name is Linda Harris, and I'm divorced.
And do you have children? And if so, how many and how old are they?
I have one daughter, and she's 44 years old.
And what do you do for a living?
Well, right now I'm retired.
Okay, and from where did you retire, your last job?
Okay, I retired from the Department of Defense with 39 years.
And tell us, how long have you known Gloria Franklin?
Might as well say all my life.
Okay, and since you've known her, you spent time with her?
Yes.
And can you tell us, have you gotten to know her reputation for honesty in the community, and is it good or bad?
Yes, I have, and it's good. I'm like Miss Mary. When I first heard about this, I was stunned because, again, like she stated too, and I agree, that's not the Gloria that I know. The Gloria that I know is always there for people, wanting to help them. Anything that she could do for not just family, but for friends, she would do. So I'm still struggling with this as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here today, Ms. Harris. And the state might have some questions for you or the court.
No questions from the state. Thank you.
She doesn't have questions, Ms. Harris, so you can stay or you can go ahead and go if you like.
I would like to stay, please.
Okay. And thank you for your statement.
Judge, the next witness we're going to call is Mr. Marcus Macon, M-A-C-O-N. Mr. Macon, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony which you're about to give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? What do you do for a living?
I am 61 years old, and I am the supplier inclusion manager for Lowe's Home Improvement.
And tell us, how long have you known Gloria Franklin and how do you know her?
I've known Gloria for over 40 years. She is my sister. I would say sister-in-law, but she is my sister. I consider her a sister more than I do a sister-in-law.
And since you've known her, did you come to learn her reputation for truth and honesty, and as well as her reputation for peacefulness and nonviolence? And if so, tell the judge a little bit about Ms. Franklin, please, sir.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as I said, I've known Gloria for over 40 years. When I met Gloria, I was fresh out of college, and right away, being the oldest of, I believe she has 7 siblings, you could tell that she was the caretaker and caregiver of the family. She's always been that person that's been there for everybody, putting herself last and putting everything else in front of it. Countless times, she's allowed people to come and live with her, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews. She's always been the refuge when needed. And again, you know, very self-sacrificing. I have 3 sons, ages 39, 34, and 30. And she has been the most amazing aunt to all of them. Time and time, I've been through situations just growing up and just having challenges and hardships. And she's always been there for me. And I'm no longer married to her sister, but yet her relationship and mine has always been intact. We're very close. She constantly checks on me. I live in North Carolina. I'm not in Georgia anymore. But we stay in touch. She constantly checks on me. And she's just an amazing person with a very big heart. As everybody has said, this whole situation is just so challenging and baffling to me, especially when I first heard of it and that she was involved, because it's just totally opposite of her character and anything that I've ever known her to do in over 4 years. And my heart and condolences go out to the family for their loss as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Macon. I don't have any other questions. The state or the court may have questions for you.
No questions from the state.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Macon. You can be excused or you can stay here as well.
I'll stay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Judge, on the call, you'll see Lakeisha Jones, Sarita Young, and others. Due to time constraints, we're not going to call them, but to a person, we believe each and every one of those other persons would have said the same thing about how long they've known Ms. Franklin, that she's not a person who they know to be a violent person, anyone who's ever been in trouble, and that she is a giving, caring person from what they've known, and she's very spiritual. So we're not going to call those folks, but they are welcome to stay on the call. At this time, Judge, Ms. Franklin does have a statement that she would like to put on the record, Your Honor.
Okay, does she need a minute before she?
She said she's okay, Your Honor.
Okay.
There are a number of people that I have disappointed by not doing the right thing. First, my Lord and Savior that has forgiven me. Second, my family, and they've forgiven me. I pride myself and intentionally do what will make them proud of me, and they've forgiven me. And today, I ask you to forgive me. Doing the right thing has always been an important aspect of my life. I failed to do the right thing on that day, that devastating day 2 years ago. Please forgive me. My heart aches as well. And the sorrow and the pain that you've gone through, I've gone through it as well. And I know it can't be mended and we can't bring her back. My desire to fix things on that day became a detriment and a long, heart aching situation for both our families. If only I had done the right thing and just walked away, but I didn't. I wish that I could have the satisfaction of holding Miss Mixon and asking for her forgiveness. However, I believe what the Bible says, and that is that we will recognize one another once we're in heaven. At that time, I'll do it. I pray that one day your hearts will forgive me and know my heart hurts as well. I'm sorry. I'm going to continue to praise God and thank Him for never leaving me in spite of my actions.
Judge, in this particular case, Your Honor, with regards to sentencing, I am asking the court to sentence Ms. Franklin as follows. First, I'm asking that you not follow the state's recommendation and send Ms. Franklin to prison. When we talk, as the court knows more than I do, the goals of sentencing, whether that be deterrence, rehabilitation, incapacitation, which is what the state is seeking, retribution, and then fifth, restoration. In this particular case, there is no benefit, I would say, to society of Ms. Franklin being in prison based on this particular case, which was a tragic case with an intervening cause. And most times, we want to send people to prison who are a danger to society. We keep them in prison from harming the community. And in this particular case, I don't believe there's any future dangerous argument with regards to this case. We are based on Ms. Franklin's history and lack of involvement, never been arrested prior to this case, never had any problems. She's not known in the community as, oh, she got away with it in the past. She's not known as a fighter. She has always been known as someone who's been a giver and a supporter. And in this case, the battery case does stand, Judge. We ask that the court sentence her as follows, Your Honor. 10 years to serve on probation, that she have no weapons while on probation, that she have no illegal drugs, that she does 100 hours of community service, that she have an anger management evaluation and treatment if necessary, Your Honor, and for any other terms and conditions to this court that this court would deem just and proper. Judge, I think I've said all I can say in this matter, and I think I've said all I can say in this matter. This was seriously a tragic incident with this intervening cause, and we believe that the court will make a wise decision in this matter. So thank you for hearing from us, Your Honor.
Okay, we're back on the record. So there was someone on here named Reginald Ray,
That's what I'm.
and I don't think he's on there now. So I'll read everybody what it says. It was a message to everybody, but I don't think anybody else could see the chat except for us. It says, sorry I have to drop. Just know that Gloria Franklin has been a second mother to me and has, I think it means instrumental in my success as a father, son, husband. She would give anyone their shirt off her back, and I extend my condolences to Miss Jackie's family. I'm not sure if there's a relation, but that was from Reginald Ray, R-A-Y. Okay, so we're back on anything else from the state?
Nothing.
Okay, anything else from you, Mr. Butterfield?
Nothing from the defense at this time.
Okay, so I'm sorry it took so long back there. We had a little bit of technical difficulty connecting to the internet, but I got to see the video, and I'm really trying to wrap my brain and not saying anything about like why this lady driving the car wasn't charged with something, because she obviously wasn't paying attention. I know there's the whole cause and effect when stuff happens, and it started out with Miss Jackie coming over and saying something to Miss Franklin, and Miss Franklin obviously got, a little upset and did push her, but unfortunately she was there for a while, so I'm not sure why the lady didn't stop the car and why she's not here. But, it happened, and I understand, and I am so sorry for your loss of Miss Jackie. My sympathies go out to all of you, and I've heard people say a lot of times the end of a criminal case isn't usually closure for people. I don't know. I think your closure is going to have to be it's between you and whoever you worship and what you can do for yourself. Listening to all of you, I felt like that I got to know Miss, Mixon, and I hate that I never got to meet her. It seemed like she was a very nice lady and meant a lot to a lot of people. Miss Franklin did push her. And someone's life did get ended, but got ended by a car. And I'm not saying Miss Franklin isn't, somehow responsible, but I also know that sentencing is for people that are danger to the society, danger to the victim's family. They're going to reoffend. And I don't see it. And I've had, and I will tell the family, I've had taken many pleas, one in this courtroom, and you have victim impact statements. And I have to say thank you to Ms. Franklin, because most people that do victim impact statements, the defendant just looks straight ahead or looks down. And I hope that y'all felt the sincerity. I think she was sincere in listening to every word that y'all said. And she turned and spoke to y'all and didn't make her apology about her, which I think is remorse, which I think is, and it may have to do something with her maturity, and that she's, this isn't a regular thing for her. Here's what I'm going to do. And like I said, I have to take into consideration everything. I know the state wants prison time, and I don't know how that's going to help anyone. But it's not letting her off either. I think I'm going to do 10 years on probation, 100 hours of community service, anger management and treatment if necessary. And I think you can, are they allowed to do community service like at churches and stuff like that? Okay. No further contact with the victim's family, no drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, and no weapons. Do we know how much like the funeral was for?
Speaking to the family, I believe that it was about 15,000, but Ms. Kimsey indicated that she has that paperwork at the house. If the court would be inclined to leave that portion open.
And if she gets it and can get it to them. So, in a lot of civil cases, people get money damages to make them whole, or some of the civil lawyers call that justice. But I'm going to have her reimburse you for those funeral expenses. And she can make, what did we figure out last time? She made the payments through probation. Is that what we said last time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll do it through probation. So it'll be payments, okay? To pay for this, the burial of the victim. Anything else you think, Ms. Franklin, that you need?
I need forgiveness from the family.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
And I know it's going to take a while because
Yes,
there
ma'am.
was a family member, but I need the
Yeah.
forgiveness.
yeah, it probably will.
Yeah,
They all seem like really good people, so
Yes.
I'm soon,
understood.
and you forgive yourself.
I have.
I think it's going to take longer than, that's probably harder than anything. But I'm so sorry for the loss of Miss Jackie.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want the state? It'll be 10 on each count run concurrent.
Your Honor,
Oh, the second one merges, doesn't it?
the second one
Vacates, yeah, so it'll be 20 years. Yeah, 10 and 10. They run concurrent, sorry. Second count will vacate by operation of law. And I think,
To do that, Judge, we did ask that she be sentenced under the First Offender Act, 42-8-60, Your Honor. So we asked that she be sentenced as a first offender in this matter. She does qualify, has no priors at all.
what says the state?
The state wouldn't have an objection for the first offender treatment. However, the state, and I know this is the second portion of it, would object to the Alford.
Right.
And as from based on everything the court's heard, as well as the video, the court can, I believe the court can see why we are resolving it as an Alford plea, Your Honor. So we ask that it be first offender as well as the Alford plea. And also for Ms. Franklin's purposes for any potential civil type cases. That's why we're seeking the first offender and the Alfred plea. And just based on the facts of the matter, facts of the case.
Okay, I'll allow it under first offender. Now, Ms. Franklin, I'm sure your lawyer told you, you could get something like a speeding ticket and then you go to prison for 10 years.
I understand, Your Honor.
Okay,
I understand wholeheartedly.
all right. And I'll take it under Alfred for the family there. She knows if she thinks if she'd go to trial, she would be found, there's a good chance she'd be found guilty, and she's still pleading guilty, but it's under Alfred, she's not admitting or denying, but she thinks if it went to trial, there'd be a good chance that she would get convicted. And I'll let her do it under Alfred, but I feel like Ms. Franklin's pleading guilty and is probably asking for the Alfred through advice of her counsel. So I don't think she's trying to avoid responsibility. Is there anything else that I can do for y'all?
Nothing from the state at this time.
And finally,
Yeah.
I do apologize. How long would that be open as far as the reimbursement portion?
So
I did just want to get.
it's roughly 15,000, said the family, right? Somewhere in there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I did speak with Ms. Franklin about whether or not any restitution would be a deal breaker for her. She states that she would like to go forward with the plea. She understands that she'll have time to pay it over probation, but she just, because she wants the court, we talked about the court could add, and she says she still wants to go forward, Your Honor, and resolve the matter.
So you just, break it up into equal payments, I guess? I don't know if you live on a limited income or what your,
Yes, Your Honor, Social Security.
okay. Are you gonna,
Attorney. So we're waiting. You want a date of when
When
your final day. How long is it gonna take the family to get that documentation to you?
I believe I can have it by the end of next week. Ms. Kimsey indicated to me that she does have that paperwork at home, but they don't have the total cost.
Is that something that everybody needs to?
I could be back. We could do it via Zoom, or if it's submitted, we may not have to come back once they submit it. We may say, okay, well, they've submitted the document to show the cost.
Is it 7th later? Is that good enough?
That's the next Friday? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that's fine with us.
And then we can just do it via Zoom if there's a need to. You all, include you all in email,
Correct.
Yes.
and then prepare an order so that probation will know and know who it needs to be paid to.
and how she can pay it? I don't want her to do without food, shelter, and clothing.
And that brings with regards to her paying it swiftly. We would ask that the court, although by law she's entitled to a bid date, we would ask that she actually put a bid date in here of 3 years from today's date with regards to in the sentence, Your Honor. Give her this.
Objects, if the restitution is paid by the due date, then I will agree to the early termination.
But that's what the bid date is for, to make sure that if a probationer gets everything done in a swift fashion. So
Right.
It's by law. By law it operates, but we all still like to ask that it be put in there. But and finally, Judge, since the court has granted the first offender under 42-8-62.1, I would like to submit an order to the court sealing the first offender for purposes of any federal benefits and everything else. I would like to submit that to Your Honor also.
Okay, any objection?
The state would object. We wouldn't object to it being sealed. However, we would object to it being sealed on the front end versus back.
Yeah.
It's always sealed on the back end by law. And
Well, when I say the front end, what I'm indicating is I know that we need to get all of this paperwork in order before it's sealed, because I know that it's more of a hassle to try to unseal it, to try to file additional documents.
oh no, yeah,
So
no,
like in a few months?
Yes, or
Really, upon finishing,
yes, no objection to that.
whenever everything's
I'll
finished.
prepare it and-
Okay, yeah. Whenever everything's finished, everything
Right,
needs to be it.
And we have nothing further from the defense at this time. Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Franklin.
Thank you, Don.
Your Honor, that concludes my business with this court. I believe I'm going to meet with probation with Ms. Franklin, but after that, may I be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
To the Mixon family, I'm truly sorry for your loss, and I hope personally that you haven't seen the video. Don't just don't watch it. It's not you don't want to see it. But due to the lapse in time and a lot of stuff, there was no oncoming car when she pushed her. There was several minutes before a car came. I understand. I know you're shaking your head, but I mean, it's not like there was a car coming. She pushed her into it doesn't make it any better or any worse, but I just want you to know there was.
If we did one.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I guess you could talk to the state, but seeing it and watching everything, it kind of made me make the decision that and whether or not she's going to do this again. But I'll keep all of you in my thoughts and prayers, and I apologize for your loss. Thank you all.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, my God.
You have got to be kidding me. What is going on today? This is a joke. This is a joke. Today is an absolute joke. We need an interpreter.
I need an interpreter when I cannot express myself sometimes.
Joke. Oh my God, sir, put that cigarette out. I don't give a crap that you are outside of this. What is wrong with everybody today? You know what, Miss Reed? We're going to start bringing people in person. People going to learn how to act in a courtroom.
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Ma'am? Ma'am? Can you hear it?
No.
Okay.
I have no patience for that. And trust me, at the end of the day, I'm sitting up here, I'm the one that needs a drink.